everybody, and welcome to a video demonstration and sort of a tutorial sort of thing, kind of anyway, of how my fire alarm panel works. So basically there was a user whose name I have forgotten, very sorry about that, who wanted me to do some sort of demonstration to help them build their own panel. So my panel is basically some relays in a box. That's how I usually describe it to people anyway. But basically what it is, it's a group of relays that act to simulate sort of the very basic electronic functions of a conventional fire panel. For instance, when a cold point is activated, it will trigger a relay to latch. Now, I think I should probably go over the basics of what a relay actually is. I'll probably put a diagram on the screen now anyway. So a relay is basically a electrical component. It's like a box, you can see it. It's like a box, and it has a coil, and it has usually two poles, and these poles are like switches. And when an electrical current is passed through this coil inside the relay, it moves these switches, and it either makes or breaks a circuit depending on how it's been wired. So what a latching relay is, I'll try and explain it as basically as possible. A latching relay is when a relay has been wired for its sort of internal switches to keep it activated until electrical current has been disconnected from it. So when it's been activated, 12 volts, well, it depends on what the voltage of the relay is really, but it's usually 12 volts. So 12 volts has been sent to the coil, and that's obviously activated the switches. But one of the switches is wired to the 12 volts, and that keeps the 12 volts going to the coil for the duration that electrical current is applied. And then once that electrical current is disconnected, it obviously can't be activated anymore, so it resets in a way. So that's basically the very, very core function of a fire alarm panel, is to keep the alarms going regardless of whether the call point is activated or deactivated, but it has to obviously be activated first. And it's not just call points, it's smoke detectors as well. And that's what this relay in my panel is for. That's this main relay here. This is sort of the heart of the panel, that's why it's right in the middle. But there is a problem with this, you see. You can't have one of these circuits wired to a call point, because a call point isn't, it sort of is like a switch, but it isn't just a switch. It's a switch, and it usually has a resistor in it as well. Obviously some of them don't, some of my KACs in here don't. This one, it does. It has two resistors in it. You can choose between which sort of resistor you want to use. It's either 470 ohms or 680 ohms. And so that makes it a bit more complicated, because you can't use these with latching relay circuits because they limit the current too much, and 12 volts is no longer sent to the coil, and it's not enough for it to trigger. So to get around that, I've added another relay in, and basically what I'm doing is I'm sort of bodging it. It has 24 volts being sent through the devices, and then when it's activated, 24 volts is sent through, and it's effectively split in half, but it actually isn't. It's probably more than 12 volts is being put through the relay. If this were to short, and if it was just a normal switch, then that relay would probably get quite warm, but it doesn't matter for what it's being used for. So yeah, but the relay connected to the devices is connected to this relay and is acting as the switch for this relay, so that you can use actual devices and of course smoke detectors. Yeah, well, that's the basics of it really. And then when you get a bit more sort of complicated, it gets a bit more complicated when you start adding devices like buzzers and LEDs. It uses the other pole of this relay here to trigger 12 volts, not 12 volts, 5 volts, and send it to the buzzer. And that's the same with the LEDs. The LED would be connected with this in parallel. But yeah, that's basically how that all works. Now, I really do hope that this helped, and that my amateur diagrams that I've probably made in Microsoft Paint or something like that, I hope that they work well enough for you anyway. So thank you for watching.